How to be unforgettable. So, yes, the title is kind of crazy. I know it's arguably unrealistic. Maybe it's not even a worthy goal to pursue, per se. But I think there's value to, as a performer, as a creator, as a business, to having some level of unforgettableness, the ability to stay present within a customer's mind or within the audience's mind. You want people to be talking about you years after they have met you, after they've had your used your products, after they've been to your performance. You want the people to tell stories about you to like their grandkids. And so I hope that some of the principles I talk about in this episode are a little bit helpful in that way to help you to like behaviorally become more unforgettable. And this is not some magical scientific woo-woo one size fits all solution. This is what has worked for me personally. So this might not necessarily apply in every single possible context, but I thought that this is worth sharing. So let's get into it. The first principle is make people feel something. So when you think about the shows, the concerts, the performances, the products that you really, really resonate with, that you love, that you remember, that stay present within your mind, it's not necessarily the best products. It's not necessarily the most useful or functional. It isn't the performances that you paid the most for. High ticket costs. It wasn't the ones that you traveled the farthest for either. It's honestly the greatest performances, the greatest performers, the most memorable products, the best of the best that you will always remember and that you will never forget tend to have the pattern of making you feel something. They made you feel something, right? Whether it was the marketing, the advertising, the way that the energy, right? Like if you're at a concert, like the energy, like the way that the entire experience made you feel, right? The way that the artist delivered the performance, the way that the product's branding hit at a different spot in your mind, right? It's about the way that something like a performance or a performer or a product can kind of play at your emotions, right? And make you feel a certain way towards it. There's a lot of psychological underpinnings here, but I'm not going to get into it. But for you personally, as an entrepreneur or a creator or a performer, you need to realize that it's not about how good you are. It's not about how perfect the setting is, right? So I used to think that for my podcast, I needed to have the perfect setup. I needed to have the perfect mic, the perfect laptop, the perfect camera, the perfect backdrop, the perfect questions, the perfect lighting, everything perfect. So I bought like this black backdrop curtain, which you can actually see in some of my previous episodes. I bought like an entire DSLR setup. I was thinking about buying a new mic. I bought some new lights. I bought all the things, right? Everything that you need to run a professional podcast. And I can't say that has actually led me down the right road. Quality is definitely a very important thing. But if you're striving for this level of presence within someone's mind, then quality is almost like a prerequisite, right? You can't expect to get the most out of a performance or to expect to deliver the most impact out of a performance or from a product just off of quality. I mean, yes, a lot of brands are built upon quality, but I feel like in a competitive world that we are in today, quality is the standard, right? You're expected to bring a quality performance, a quality product to the table. Otherwise, people aren't even going to give you an opportunity, right? So quality is a prerequisite. And so it's a prerequisite for what? For the impact. And the way you actually have impact is by making people feel something. Inject emotions, appeal to their emotions, right? Give them a reason to love your brand. Give them a reason to remember your performance, right? Give them a reason to want to tell stories about your performance. And so how do you actually do that, right? How do you transcend the traditional boundaries? How do you make people remember you? How do you make people want to tell stories and never ever forget about this moment, right? Have it forever ingrained into their memory, into their book of memories. So, I mean, behaviorally at least, it's about just being controversial, right? You can do controversial things, right? The way that you perform, the way that you do your branding, the way that you have your brand messaging, the way that you construct the product, right? The model that you use to deliver the value, right? Subvert the common expectations that other brands are doing and just have the balls to experiment here, right? Have the balls to take a little risk, to dive a little bit deeper into one side of something that might not work out, but could work out, right? The greatest inventions, the greatest brands of all time have come off the back end of a huge risk, have come off the back end of one person having a very crazy idea that nobody else believed in, but they believed in it. And that was enough. That was enough to build empires. That was enough to build brands and to host performances that people will never forget, right? So controversy is one way to inject an element that people can remember into your performances, into your products. The next thing, this is especially important for content creators, is to be unapologetically yourself, right? Because you're one of one, truly, deeply within your soul, you are one of one. There's never anyone that has ever been anything like you, and there never will be anyone that is 100% like you. So that gives you every single bit of agency that you need to make unique content, to stop copying other people, and to think for yourself, to create something, to build a product that that the world has never seen before, that it didn't think that it needed, but realizes that it needs so bad, right? Deliver a performance that wows people, that leaves them in awe, right? And I feel like whenever you kind of tamper expectations initially, right? You don't really hype things up. You don't really give people, you don't give people super high expectations initially, right? So this is how you kind of break into a market or break into an industry. It's to be an underdog, kind of. You're not like the top dog, like you don't have the huge brand name, you're not famous yet. But to break in as an underdog, you gotta be like surprisingly extraordinary, like surprisingly memorable, right? And the way you do that is by being unapologetically yourself. And the reason why this works is because there's so many creators, so many performers, and so many businesses that are just recycling ideas, copying each other, not trying to do anything original, because it's safe, right? It's comfortable. It's comfortable to just do what everyone else is doing because it's proven to work. There's a chance, or there's less of a likelihood for you to fail. There's less of a likelihood that you will not achieve the thing, right? Because it's already been done before. But the greatest outcomes have never, ever, ever been a result of a basic copycat input, right? Like copying other people and copying their success has never been a recipe for doing something extraordinary. Yet you might succeed. By what metric though? By mediocrity? By averageness? Like you will never be able to surpass the level that the original person achieved, right? If you think about it, if you're copying somebody, they were the first. There's a reason why you're copying them. It's because they were successful. And if you copy them, unless you really get lucky and you pivot in a certain way, you'll never be able to surpass their level of greatness, right? And so if you're the type of person that wants to achieve great things, for yourself, then it's good to be inspired by what others have done in the past, but it's so important to just live in the present and to come up with your own ideas, to create products and deliver performances that are so unapologetically you, that is so unique to you, because you are one of one, right? And if you combine this with some controversy, something that makes people question, makes people think, subverts the common comfortable beliefs that society holds, and it makes people feel something, right? They feel an emotion, a connection to you, then you will stay present in their mind. People will never forget you. People will tell stories about you for years, for decades. And I don't care who you are. I don't care how much of an ego or a lack of ego that you have. Being unforgettable is a leverage point, right? It's one of the most fundamental points of leverage that anybody, any creator, any performer, any business owner, any entrepreneur can have, right? Because when you establish this level of connection with your audience, with your customers, it becomes transcendent. It becomes actualized. It's deeper than just a one-to-one relationship, right? You can connect with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just through these principles, through these behaviors. You don't need to put as much effort. You don't need to spend as much money. It's really magical. And I hope that you remember the principles I told you in this video. Like I said, make people feel something, be controversial, and be unapologetically yourself. And that will make you unforgettable. Goodbye.